I believe you should be able to see my screen now. So hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. Some of you, for some of you it's pretty early, and for some of you it's pretty late. So anyway, thanks a lot for joining us. In this webinar, we will be presenting on what's new in Sahi Pro version 5.1. 5.1 has been a fairly major release, and we have added a lot of features to the product, and some of them have been pretty important to us and to our customers. Like they have been a result of the feedback that we have gotten from the customers, and we have incorporated those, and we feel that many of these features will be pretty useful to you right away. So one of the first things that we've added is what we call the data-driven suites. Um, what was the need for it? The problem is that previously we would allow data driving of test cases using an API called _data drive. Now, data drive was used as an API inside a particular Sahi script. So what would happen is even if you had a lot of data, let's say like 20 rows of data through which you had to iterate and run the scripts. Now they would all work as if they are just part of one script, even though the data itself will be seen separately in the reports. That will be seen only in the script reports. It wouldn't show up at the suite level. All the data was run as a single script. Reporting would fail the whole script even if one set of data failed, or you wouldn't know how many sets of data failed, and the script itself was marked as a failed one. When you have like a lot of operations being performed per iteration of the data, parallel, the script itself may take a long time, and if you had wanted to actually run them in parallel, it was not possible with _data drive, because as far as size script runner sees it, it's just one single script. And if a suite failed, or like if a script failed, we needed to run. If we rerun the script, it is going to rerun for all the sets of data again. So that's a lot of time that is wasted. Even though maybe just 2 sets of data failed, you would be rerunning the whole thing for 20 sets of data. So what we have done is we have actually pulled out the data passing ability outside of the script, and we are now allowing suites to pass the script, the data themselves. Now, what this allows us to do is the same script can be repeated multiple times in a suite, and alongside each one of these scripts, different sets of data can be passed. So even if like when the script runs, they run as if like there are, when the suite runs, it runs as if there are multiple scripts, and if there is a failure, it will be only for that particular set of data, and these can actually run in parallel too. So what I'm going to do now is actually switch to a small demo of this data-driven suites. So let us look at a sample script. So let me actually do one other thing. So this would have been a sample script from before, if you're familiar with the Sahi demonstrations. So we are including a lib.sh file. We are invoking a function called login with test and secret as the parameters. Then we are adding books in particular numbers, then verifying the total, and then logging out. Okay. And what are these individual functions themselves? They are here defined in lib.sh. And here you see that there are functions that says login takes username password and it is passed in. Similarly, Java and Ruby and Python are being passed in. And these are all different functions, and these functions have been included using include lib.sh, and they have been invoked here. Now, if you were to let us say that we want to now run the same script with different sets of Java books, Ruby books, and Python books. Okay. So now let me actually, like, for those of you who have never seen this demo, let me actually show you a brief of what web page I'm talking about. So this is the sample Sahi sample page. So let me bring up the dashboard. On the dashboard, I'm going to click on let's say Chrome. and we will navigate to our sample application. And what we are talking about is logging in here and then adding books in particular quantities and then verifying the total so that it is 1550 and then logging out. Okay. So we just conducted a poll and there are about 60-70% of people who have used Sahi, and there are still like about 20% of people who haven't used Sahi at all. So for them, I'm going to do a small walkthrough of this again. So here is the dashboard. You can launch any browser you want from here. Bring up the controller and click on and give a script name. Now we're going to the training website, and here as I type in things, these are going to get recorded. Okay, so I put in test, secret, login, and then add books. Control hover on the grand total to make this access set populated. Click on assert. This gives me a few valid assertions on this particular element. I click on test and append to script. This adds it to the script, and here we have logout. Okay, now stop the script. Let's look at the script now. Oh, it's already, so this is I'm sorry, like I actually re-recorded on an already existing script. So this is what is actually the thing that we just recorded. So in this, let me just remove these. So here we see that it says navigate to, set value, test, secret, then login, put in the values to 231, add, verify the totals, and then log out. So one of the things we would have recommended just after this is to actually clean this up and create functions. So we would choose 3 steps, create function, and then give the name of the function name. You click this becomes, it creates a function and it also calls it here. Similarly, we would do something like this here, add books, and so on. So we would say like total. So why do we do this? We do this so that the overall script is more readable and it actually talks to you in the language of the business. So what we end up here is we have a few functions at the top which have been created by Sahi, and then here are the actual steps that ran. Okay. Now there is a small error here in this which I'll tweak. So here we have like login, add books, verify total, and logout. So let me save this and we'll run the script. See that it does that. We look at the logs. The logs look something like this, and here all the functions are clubbed together, and when you open it, it shows you the steps that ran, and if you click on any line of script, it takes you to the actual code. And if you want to edit it now, you can actually edit script and modify it if you want it right from the browser itself. Now while there is a script editor that is available with Sahi, you can also use any text-based script editor to modify Sahi scripts. We especially for if you have a lot of scripts, we recommend using Eclipse. If you have a lesser number of scripts, you may actually just be able to do it with the Notepad++, or use both of them interchangeably. So here we have this particular script. So what we saw was so this is what we are talking about. Let's look back at the script that we have right now. So here it is. We say login, add books, verify total, and logout. So since we are actually verifying the total of this of the screen, So we may add it in, if we add only 0, what does it come up as? Like if we add only 1, are there any boundary conditions? If I actually pass in -1, what happens? So these are things that we need to actually test out. Okay. So so if you have multiple sets of data, let us say that, how do we actually run it? So here is what the new data-driven suites allows us to do. Okay. Now let us take totals.dd.csv. This is the So this is the format of the DDCSV file. So a DDC, so we have it named as .dd.csv because we want it to be editable by Excel if possible. So a lot of testers are very comfortable with Excel. So we can actually just open it with Excel, and you would see something like this. Right? It's just a regular CSV file which is being opened in Excel. Now, what we get in this is, we are saying, here is the script that we want to run. Here's the URL that we want to run it against, and these are the variable names that need to be passed into the script. Now let us look at the script itself. It talks about num Java, num Ruby, num Python, and here it is num Java, num Ruby, num Python, and the total cost. So note that like these column names do not have dollar in them, but like when used in the script, it actually uses dollar. Okay. Now again, like as I said, this is what the script would look like. Now, before we actually run it along with the suite, let me actually do one other thing. If you were to run the script from the controller, we need default values for these variables. Okay. So if it is run from a suite, the values are passed in here. But if you want to just run this script from the controller while you're developing it or while replaying it, you would need to pass in some defaults to these variables. So what we do is there is a variable called isDataPassed, which is only true if data has been passed through a suite or if the script has come through a suite. Now if it is not, then what it will do is like if you can actually check for this variable, and if not, then define these 4 variables here. So what it does is, if you're running it from the controller, this isDataPassed will be false. So numJava is 2, Ruby is 3, Ruby is 1, Python is 1. Now if data was passed, it will use the data that has been passed from the CSV file. Okay. Now let's look at this. So we have actually called this with 211 and 1150. So this will become 211 and 1150. So let's run this particular suite. Okay. When running a suite is generally done through the test runner. So how do we launch the test runner? So let me do that. So from the dashboard, you click on the bin link. This launches the command prompt taking you right to where the test runner is. So you just like call test runner, and this shows you different options that you can run. So I'm going to choose the last one, and put in the right path, and I believe that is webinar/totals.dd.csv. Okay, let me close this Excel sheet just in case it and I'm going to run it on I. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to launch 3 different browsers. So and it's executing these test cases on 3 different browsers. One of them is taking a little time because we have configured it such that it fails. Okay. Now, for those of you who haven't used Sahi, Sahi kind of optimistically waits for positive cases and pessimistically waits for when it sees a failure. I'm not sure what I said was right, but still. So what it means is if a step can be executed correctly, it will go ahead and execute it. But if it sees that there is something wrong in that step, it will retry that step after 2 seconds, and it will do this retry 5 times. So when a failure happens, it actually takes 10 seconds to fail. While a normal execution, the time between each step is 100 milliseconds. So the test proceeds fast, but if it encounters a failure, it will slow down and wait for some things to happen and then like go and try to run it. So here we see that this particular run says info I failure. Okay. So let's go look at the logs. Here are the logs. It says totals.dd.csv. It shows up in red. I click on this. I see that one of them is red. And which one is it? I see that it is the one which says 3 of Java, 2 of Ruby, and 1 of Python, and the total is 1550. Okay, so we click on this. So along with the, so you see that all three are verified total.sh, and along with the name, the data that was passed is also visible here. So you can quickly figure out like what test cases it is that is failing. You click on verify total.sh. Inside it actually shows you similar logs. You can open it up, and here it shows you that the actual was 1650, while we expected it to be 1550, right? So here we go. Like we could have actually let's say that we still do not know why this is happening. We want to rerun the script. So one of the things that we have added is sorry about that. So one of the things that we have added is whenever a script runs, if it fails, it automatically creates a failure suite. Okay. So let me show you that failure suite. So if the name of the suite was totals, it will come up as totals underscore. Let me just check that, fail or failed. Okay, totals underscore failed dot dd.csv. Okay. Now let's look at this file itself. So this shows. Let me open it up. So this shows only that script which has failed with the data that was passed to it. Okay. So so this allows you to easily rerun a particular script. So you just like change once you have run a suite, and if you see that it's failed, if you want to just rerun it without verifying, you can just add underscore fail to it and run this. So here we go. Like it only executes one particular script. And this again should fail because it's trying to, here it is the grand total is 1650, but it's verifying that it's 1550. So this will fail. Right, so it failed again. So and this fail suite like is also applicable to not just DD.CSV files. It is also applicable to the older regular suite that you used to have. Okay. Now that was that is like the first way of running it using DD.CSV. Now this also has a lot of more power. So what we have done is we have taken the concept of passing in cascading values and tags, etc., to give it like a lot of control, to give you a lot of control over how you actually execute your scripts. So let's go back to this totals. Now you see, let us say that we see that this numpython is always 1 here. Okay. So this is like this is, assume that this is just for an example. Okay. So the numpython is constant here, and so is the URL. Okay. So what we could do is actually create another suite. Okay. So this is what we have done, and in which we pass the script URL and numpython, but the script itself can be another suite. Okay. So what we are saying is we have a master.dd.csv where we're saying that run this totals2, and here what is totals2? It is basically the same as totals, but without the URL and without the numpython. So we have removed these two columns. So here we have removed these two columns and left the rest of it intact, and we have another master suite which includes this and passes in the URL and numpython. So what this essentially means is when this particular script is run, it will actually inherit the values from the master URL and numpython, and it will also use its own values of numjava, numruby, and numtotalcost. Okay. So let's run this. So here again, so you see that 1 is definitely populated in that, and so is it in this. So it is getting, it is being passed over to here, and also the start URL was correctly the training URL, so that also seems to be fine. So let's look at the logs of this. again the same, and here it shows all the inherited and overall values here. Okay, so you can see that numjava numruby is here, total cost, this was what was coming directly from here, and then URL and numpython are also available in this. Okay, and let's look at the fail suite. Now this is interesting because in the actual suite where it only had these three parameters, but Sahi actually takes all the inherited parameters also and adds it into this. Okay, so when you want to run your failed suite, it will have access to all the variables even though it was nested inside different suites. Okay, so this is how it is. So it actually inherits the properties. In the failed sheet, it correctly puts in those attributes. In the logs, it shows all the attributes that have come in. Okay. Now, you may be wondering that, okay, so this suite actually only can take the same kind of script and it has to have the same number of attributes at the end of it. What happens, what if you want to actually run multiple kinds of scripts inside it which take different number of parameters, right? So what we do, that is also possible in this. So let me open up this particular test which is visible when we do test runner. So if you look at, there is an example already available in the demo folder. So I'm going to open this up. So here you can see that, you know, there are, this is the first kind of, so the login, these scripts take the same username and password, so they are all together. Okay, and this particular script does not have any URL or tags or username or password. So whenever there is a change in the number of parameters that need to be passed to a script, you add another block of hash script here. If you do that, Sahi will start interpreting the headers again. So similarly, like if you put it as script tags, now there is like another CSV file which has the employee ID as 1000 and the tags as this. Okay, so you can, in a DDCSV, at any point of time add or remove columns by just inserting that hash script line with the corresponding headers. So it treats this particular block as one, this block as one, and this block as one. So it'll correctly, so hash script demarcates one kind of one block of scripts with certain parameters from another. Okay. Now you also see that in this particular thing there is a concept of tags. So it says tags is user comma high, user comma medium, and this one doesn't have any tags, and this one has admin high user, etc. So tags are like tags are used for tagging different test cases. For example, you may have some test cases which are from the user module which need to be run in the smoke test in the smoke suite, and there is this user and you may tag it as a revision 5 or version 6, so that this was added in version 6 and these should be tested against version 6, or like you can say that this is for branch 23. So those things can be tagged using the tags here, and when executing the scripts you can do something like this. So you give it as testrunner.bat, this CSV file that we want to run, start URL, browser, and then this is a Boolean expression of the tags. This is the filter that we pass in. So only those scripts which match this filter, which is to say it's either user or admin and of medium priority. Okay, so let's look at this. Medium priority are these two. And I think, see, since there are scripts inside scripts, there may be more which have like medium priority. So let's just run this and see what it does. All right, so there it is. Let's look at the logs now. So it shows 2 scripts ran because these were of user medium one. And let's run it without any tags and see how many that runs. Let's actually run it on Chrome just to show that it works on all browsers. So it's running in 4 simultaneous sessions. So one of the things we also did was like we added a lot of optimizations around. That's done actually. So optimizations around how we are handling the Java process. We have like a lot of multi-threads. Since it's a proxy, there were a lot of like multi-threading going on even in the logging. So we added connection pools and also figured out a few memory leaks that we have fixed. So it's like very stable now in 5.1, and you could actually run a lot of test cases without like worrying about the memory of Sahi increasing. There was like in the last version there was a particular bug which would cause the memory to go up if left in a particular condition. So which has been fixed now. There we are. Let's look at this again. So it failed. One of them failed, and for the correct reason, because it is actually being passed the wrong username and password. So that one fails. The rest of them passed, and you would, as I showed you, the failed script would have the correct parameters and the names of the scripts. Okay, so if you have any questions, like let us, you can ask them, but we'll be answering it only towards the end of the session. So if you have any questions, please ask it in the questions panel. Like we'll be monitoring it, and if we find that like something is relevant to what we are presenting right now, we can actually answer them. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to go through this list to see if there is anything relevant right now. So there are a couple of questions. Like one is, are you going to share the recorded video? Yes, we'll be sharing it after the session. And is there any difference between editing in Eclipse and Notepad? Yes, there are lots of differences. Eclipse gives you syntax highlighting. It gives you, it reports errors, and it lets you find scripts very easily. So it's much better to actually use it with Eclipse than with Notepad++. Okay. Okay. So let me get back to the next feature. So this is something that was asked by a couple of our customers. So what this is used for is like we are using Sahi as a documentation tool. Sahi can already record whatever is happening on the browser. So if what we've done is like we have also added screenshots while it is recording. Okay, so that instead of displaying it as just a script back, we actually show the screenshots one by one, and along with like what step was executed. So what this allows us to do, allows customers to do is, let's say that you have a manual testing team and like you're just starting on automation, and it's quite possible that the automation engineer may not be very well versed with like the actual business flows. So instead of the manual tester actually trying to show that person everything, or like kind of document the whole thing, this serves as a self documenter. All the person needs to do is start up the application through Sahi and go to the record mode, click a checkbox, and what will get recorded is a Sahi script along with screenshots. So it's useful for like quickly building a knowledge base, knowledge sharing with like other members of the team to quickly look through to see what the functionality could be. And yeah, automation testers get a reference for flow. So the docs themselves, as they're recorded, they are just like Sahi scripts with some extra comments in them. So they themselves are a first cut automation script for the automation testers to actually pick and use. So here I'm actually saying manual testers and automation testers. I believe that, like, there is a very thin line between them, and like people may be functioning between these two roles, because Sahi is a fairly easy tool. Anybody can actually pick and use it. But if there is any, when there is a new person who has come into the team and there is knowledge to be shared, it's good that we have tools like these to help you with the documentation. So what I'm going to do is show you a simple record and playback of let me just close these, please. Okay. Now bring up the dashboard, start up a browser. We'll use the same example that we've been using, and here we'll actually record. We'll put it in the webinar folders. Okay. And here are two checkboxes. One says enable screenshot, and it says used for documentation. Okay, so let's check this and start recording. Okay, we click on record. Let's maximize the screen so that the recording does records only this part. Username, we put in test secret login. Okay, so okay, let me do the full thing. Bring back the controller, assert on this, enter script, and log out. That's a simple sequence we have done, and we'll stop this recording. Okay, let's look at the script itself. We click on the script editor. It shows up the script, but look at what has happened. Like, along with the with each step, it has actually added a screenshot and some description here. Okay, and now if we actually view the same thing using the docs button here, what we see is something like this. So it shows us that, navigate to this URL, enter the value of test and user text box, enter value secret and password box, click on the login submit button, enter value 2 in Q text box, 3 in the Q text box. So here, like Q1, etc., get a little confused, but we try to do it actually says it's the second Q text box and the third Q text box. Click on the add button, assert that the total text box exists, and then there are a couple of assertions which do not have an image, and click on the logout button, right? So here, like, you have a kind of a documentation already available, and you may want to actually export this somewhere and then pass it on to your whichever team member needs to know about it. So you can actually specify it here and say, I want it in I can just put it as doc1. This is the folder where this will be exported. So I click on export as HTML, and it gives me the path. I can just open that up, and here we have in that path, like, we have doc1.sh. Okay, and these images are also bundled inside. So you'll see that so these are the images along with them. So when you export them, you get everything that you want. You can just like zip up this folder and send it to whoever needs it. Okay, so you can just zip this folder and send it to whoever needs it. That's the documentation feature. Then we have the web-based scenario editor. So one of the things that we had introduced in a couple of versions back was exposing the script itself as just an Excel sheet with keywords in them. So this was actually quite useful for business users who do not want to see the nitty-gritties of the code, but want to have high-level keywords that are expressed in the business language, and they would want to actually just create their test cases using those. So what we had was something like this. So this was the kind of Excel sheet we used to have to express a scenario. So here it is. So this is the test case. We call a function with the parameters, again function with parameters, and function parameters. So where are these functions defined? These functions are defined in samplelib.sh. These are the same kind of functions that we just have been recording and creating. So it goes into, so the actual functions are in samplelib.sh, which you load using load Sahi, and then you can call those functions with the correct parameters. And if you were to execute this particular script, so let me actually execute this. So what we are doing is actually executing the XLS itself from the Sahi controller, and what it has done is, it's given this particular thing. We look at the logs, and it shows us something similar to what our Excel sheet itself looked like. So if you were to actually see this, it says test case, check shopping cart total, login, etc. It says the same thing, check shopping cart total, and then sim. But if you click on this, you'll see that something is wrong. It's not defined. It says, right. So the thing is, when we actually created this, it was useful for our testers. But one of the things that happened was, how do you know what functions have been defined in samplelib.sh? So if you had to actually know it previously, or you needed to look it up as and when needed. So instead, like what we have done is actually create what we call a scenario editor, web-based scenario editor, which lets you synthesize such test cases from a web-based user interface. Now, note that this particular Excel sheet, it can be a .xls file, but since we also needed it to be stored as a text-based format, we have another CSV format called .s.csv. Okay, so which is to say it is a scenario CSV file. So since we have the data-driven suites also as CSV files and the scenario also as CSV files, we kind of gave them double suffixes. So it's like .dd.csv for data-driven suites and .s.csv for scenario files. So let's open the same script from our scenario editor. Okay, so what we do is I'm going to close this. For those of you who haven't seen this, there is a web-based script editor and runner that is available from the web. Okay, this link, it opens up like this. So so it could have been, let's say, like we want to edit one of the scripts that we just wrote. So for example, verify total. So if you click on the edit icon here, you can edit it from here. And similarly, if it is a DDCSV file, if you edit it, it actually shows up as an Excel sheet. You can actually like modify it to put some other value and save it. And if it is a scenario file, then it shows up as something like this. Okay. Now, what happen? Look at how it shows up in this particular script. It says that login 3 is in red, and it's in red because this particular function does not exist in samplelib.sh. So let's look at, if I were to see which ones are available, so I could just click it. I know that there is login available, so I change it to login, and here we have like it's changed to a normal color. And when I click on any of these, it shows me the function name and the parameters that are being passed. This it picks it from the $username password. It's picking it from the SH file itself. It parses it and figures out like what functions are available, what are the parameters available in them, and then it pieces together this information. So you can actually, like at any point, like when you have actually written, let's say you have picked a particular keyword, and let's say verify total, okay, or verify not logged in. So if I click this, it can tell me like what are the arguments that are available here. In this case, there are none. So let me actually go back to verify total. That is a better example. So here it says that there needs to be one parameter that is available. So it says that there is a total thing that needs to be there. So we put in a value, okay, and then it shows up correctly. So if we were to actually use a lesser number of parameters, it is actually valid in JavaScript, so it's fine. So if you pass in lesser number of parameters, so if you pass in more parameters, it kind of warns you saying that you have actually passed in more parameters, right? So this is used to actually edit and work on your scenario files. it gives you a little more help on like what functions are available and whether you're making a mistake when you're calling these functions. So there we are. Okay, let me just. So next thing that we have added is email notification. So this has been a feature which has been requested by like almost all our users. So previously we had said that you could run it, you could trigger it from Ant, and we let Ant handle the email sending. But then because like some people were not using Ant at all and were just running it using the testrunner or drun.bat files or the testrunner or drun.sh files, we moved it into Sahi itself, the act of sending the email. So what it does now is like on suite completion, it will send out an email. It needs to be configured via this user data bin email.properties file. Okay. And in email.properties, I'm going to show you what. So each one of those attributes is described here. Okay, if true, etc. So what we need to do is actually uncomment those which we want to add and put in the, you know, etc. So you put in as like, you know, whatever the port is, etc. You configure them here, and in here we have send email report is false. You need to change it to true if you want to send it from testrunner. Okay. Similarly, like drun.bat has the same thing as send email report. You can also specify which trigger, whether you want to actually trigger it on both success and failure or just on failure. So we can specify this here. And the email.properties files, it's actually like pointing to that email.properties file. Okay. So with these three parameters, it will send out an email automatically at the end of a suite. And the email itself looks, so the content of it, like, well, this is the content of it. It shows you know status is failure, the browser was this, the version in which it was run was this was the number of scripts passed, total run, etc., total time taken. So this time taken is actually, this is a slightly older screenshot, so this time taken actually shows up in minutes and seconds correctly, and it also shows you all the failed scripts. There's also an attachment along with it, which gives you the reports of that particular suite. And when downloaded and extracted, it looks something like this. This is the folder which would be there. You click on index.html. So this is a similar kind of report that you see in your offline reports. And clicking on the failed one shows you the scripts and the screenshots, etc. So you have the whole report of the playback zipped and sent along with your email. Okay. We added a few APIs for handling REST APIs and web services. What we have done is, hello. Yeah. I'm sorry. There was some interruption here. Can you hear me? Okay. So what we have here is APIs for handling REST services which have been exposed via REST or SOAP. So what we have allowed Sahi to do is we have exposed a few APIs which can make URL connections to the relevant URL, add parameters as needed, add request headers as needed, and then read the response headers, read the status, and if it is an XML, also pass it and see what is the content of it. So I'm going to show you a small example. More details are available in the documentation. So so this would be a sample file. So here we are creating a REST request object, which is actually part of the new Sahi 5.1. We are setting the header. So request allows you to set the header of, like, let's say I'm setting it accept encoding to deflate and SDCH. Then set the URL, which is the request URL. And then we are adding more parameters to it. So instead of constructing a query string with like an key equal to value and key 2 equal to value 2 and like making sure that everything is escaped, you can just create a parameter object and add use key and values. Sahi will automatically create the query string out of it correctly. Now you can actually add it to the body or add it to the URL itself. So here we have added to the body and submitted using post method. So you can post it, get it, delete, like you can use any of the verbs that are available with REST APIs. Then it is to get the response body, we say response.getBody as string, and in this case it is actually returning in XML, and this is kind of a standard way to handle XML in Sahi. This is like a standard documented way of replacing something and then accessing it. Ignore these for now. We can actually get a namespace, and then from the XML we can actually get the data. So the XML parsing in Sahi is done using what is called E4X. You can read it up on the web. E4X is actually XML parsing for ECMA scripts, like, and JavaScript is one of those. So Rhino has a very nice E4X parser, so it's very easy to actually get data from XMLs. There are actually demo scripts available in Sahi folder which you can look at if you want to know more about it, and there is also documentation available which actually shows you how to do that. So this particular script, I'm going to just run it once and show you that you can actually access various things. So once it runs, it shows that, I'll show you in the logs, it's actually getting the full XML. This is the XML that came, and it actually extracted out what was in the string. So this is what it is doing. So you can do it with like fairly complex XMLs also. That's not a problem. And it also, E4X also allows you to handle multiple namespaces in the same XML file. So it's easy to actually get data even when XMLs are namespaced differently. There are blocks of XML in different namespaces. Now I think like we are running out of time, and I have a couple of, I think one more feature that I would like to actually show. Okay, so the thing is, one of the things that we have added now is almost all the documentation that we had online is currently available along with Sahi itself. So if you click on the docs link, it'll give you, so let's say that, you know, we want to look at XML parsing, so we can go to using Sahi and XML, and parsing XML and Sahi containing namespaces. This is what I was mentioning. You know, like it actually has like pretty much all the documentation that we had in piecemeal along in our forums, in our support portal, and on our website. We have consolidated all of that and put it together in this particular documentation. So all the APIs are available. So if you wanted to actually say, you know, REST, so it shows you like all the things that are part of the REST API. Or if you wanted to know any of the launch browser, etc., you can actually look at. So everything is available in the documentation right now, and we are keeping on updating whatever new is coming in. So like even though like this is a first cut, it's like 90% accurate. Not accurate, actually it covers 90% of it. It should be 100% accurate, and the rest of it we are adding as and when we discover that there is something missing. Now there is one interesting thing that we have added, which is to actually in a single session of Sahi script, it is possible to now log in as two different users in say yahoo.com. So normally a particular script in Sahi will only launch one browser of that session, okay, of a particular cookie session. Now if you wanted to let's say, you know, test chat functionality, you had to log in as one user and then log in as another user in another browser and send chat messages in between. This was not possible before in Sahi because sessions would be shared. But what we have now done is actually introduced a couple of two new APIs, which, you know, so here is what it does. There is this launch new browser wherein it takes a URL and it returns an instance ID. So what it does is it from a session it launches another browser and in another session, and there you can actually say what are where to point the next steps to. So you can, if you choose the select browser with that instance ID, now all steps that are further like this login, assert equal, etc., will be pointing towards this new browser. And if you set it back to like, you know, nothing, if you pass in nothing, it will come back to the base window. So what we're doing is launching a new browser. We're working on the new browser, logging in there. Before that we have actually logged in as the first user in base browser, new browser, log in as second user, come back to the base browser, reload it, and check that you're still logged in as the first user. Okay, so we'll just run the script to see like whether the thing goes off. So here we have one window, and it's logging in. So for those of you who are new to Sahi, you will see that there are no wait statements in this particular process of logging in. Even though there are like other wait statements that we have added to show the different screens in parallel. But normally you don't need any waits in Sahi because Sahi automatically handles Ajax page loads, etc. So you would have about only 50% of the code that you would have if you had written it in another some other tools. So there are no waits, there are no XPaths. The overall thing is like really simple for end users to use. And that's actually going a little slow. Okay, so let it run. Like you can also execute those test cases on your own systems, like to see how it works. You have the documentation online. A couple of other major things that we have added is actually IE11 support. IE11 was badly broken in Sahi because IE changed its navigator user agent, because of which it wasn't detected as Internet Explorer at all. So we had to actually make some changes for that, and also some event simulation. So the 5.1 has like good IE11 support and core support. What we mean by this is like if you had an HTML5 application where there were XML requests being made from one domain to another, causing cross-domain requests. Previously in Sahi, we would see access control allow origin errors, which will no longer occur in 5.1, and the application will behave correctly. Okay, there seems to be something wrong at our with the loading of the site, so maybe some other time. So I'm open for questions now. If you have any questions, please ask them here. I'll be answering them. If you are unable to answer this right now, what we'll do is we'll have like follow-up emails with the questions that we'll be answering. Like we'll be answering those questions, and we'll also send out a link to the webinar that we will be publicly hosting. Okay. Okay, so there is one very important question. Are there any special instructions for upgrading to 5.1? So we actually made upgrading a little easier now. So when you actually install it, you can say that you're upgrading. If you actually give a already existing Sahi folder to install onto, it'll just do an upgrade. What it'll do is it'll not copy over the user data folder. Okay, so what you'll be left with is with your older user data folder, but the rest of the files will be the newer ones. Now that means that the reporting related changes that we have added may not be available to you. So what I'll suggest is there is a particular link on how to upgrade. Okay. So upgrade Sahi. So this particular link actually shows how to actually do it and what are the different files that you need to copy over. So you can actually go to using Sahi, upgrade Sahi, and you should be able to see how to do it. And whatever you do, I would suggest that you actually take a backup of your older Sahi folder and then try to do an upgrade on it. So just in case you want to actually, you forget that there are a couple of configurations that you have done that you need now. So we would advise you to actually take a backup of it before you do the upgrade. Okay, so there is one other question about like about layout testing. I think we didn't cover it in the session, but there are APIs to actually read the layout of a particular page and compare it with what we are expecting. So there is a particular way by which we can express the layout of a file in Sahi. I think since it's a slightly longer topic, we may have another. Either I can refer you to the documentation. You need to look for layout in using Sahi, or we can have a follow-up webinar later to actually like just talk about verifying layouts. Okay, I'm reading through the questions so like to see which ones I should be answering for everyone and which ones should be answered in private. Okay, so there's a question on, can you do browser only screenshots instead of the whole desktop? No, right now we cannot do that. So in fact, that also means there is a limitation if the page has been scrolled. So if there is a big page, you only get to see what is in this in the viewport. The scroll down section is not available to you in the screenshot. So can we export them to MS Word? No, it's just HTML right now. Is it possible to trigger emails through test runner? Yes, it is possible to email through test runner. One thing I forgot to mention is the email itself. What data goes out is actually configurable through a template. Can we assert on the SOAP results? Yes, like since they are just XML, you should be able to assert on the SOAP results. Right, so there is a question on, did we cover object repository feature? I think I did not. So let me actually quickly go through that. I'm going to, okay, there is the dashboard, launch browser. So what we have done is, while recording, we can also specify the repository in which to store the objects that are associated with that particular script. So let's go to record. So let's so I'm giving a path, and here like it actually says enable object repository. When I click that, this object repository file path comes up, and here I can actually give it another name. Now when I click on record and do stuff, so I'll stop it here and I'll show the script itself. So the script editor shows that there is an include of web2 or.sh and then set value of this. So you see that the actual elements have been changed to something else. So like for example, if it had been textbox user, it actually records as like $textbox user, and this itself is actually part of web.or.sh. So if I load the script, it shows me the definitions of each one of those with textbox user. Okay. So this is the object repository feature. So what we have in this release done is to enable object repository per script if need be. You can also point to an existing. So if I were to record another script now and I am pointing to the same object repository, so it won't actually so this is the web3.sh, and if I load this, so it knows that there are duplicates and it won't add to it. So if you are using so for similar pages and similar functionality, even if you are recording multiple scripts, you may actually keep the same object repository and it will make sure that there are no duplicates there. The whole point of the object repository is to actually have one point of editing when there is some change in the user interface. So we want to keep we don't want duplication in the object repositories itself, so we can point to the same object repository for different scripts. You can choose which ones you want, and as and when you're recording itself. I'm coming back to the questions. Okay, well, there's a question on what is the default time it waits. So Sahi actually between each step it waits for 100 millisecond, but it will only execute a step if it knows that the page has fully loaded and all Ajax activity has subsided. And for this it will wait for about 2.5 minutes. So this is configurable in side.properties. Now even if it if it doesn't load in 2.5 minutes, it will go ahead and execute the step that is next to it. Okay. Now if there is a failure, however, so if the page has loaded and if there is a failure, even then it will actually retry 5 times with a gap of 2 seconds between each one of those steps. That is because it is trying to see if there is any other timeouts or set timeout or set interval that is being invoked in the application, which will trigger something to make this work. So it waits for about 10 seconds before it fails. So can we send an email at the end of running this Excel Sahi file? Yes, you can also do that. Okay, so the column tag from the .csv file from your example, is it a user defined one or is it a reserved name? So there are two reserved names, URL and tags. So URL and tags are two reserved words. The rest can be anything that you want, but make sure that it's not it doesn't have spaces in it, so that because it needs to be passed in as a variable inside your script. So can we migrate to the new version with the same size scripts? Yes. Can we send email from scripts? You can also do that. There is an API to actually send emails. There is an article in the documentation on how to send emails from inside a script itself. So if the Excel framework has multiple SAH files using then all the scripts, all the functions in all those included files will be visible. Can we change the property name in object repository? Yeah, if you change it, you should also change it in the corresponding script. So there's a question on can we do mobile application testing through Sahi Pro? You can only test mobile browser applications through Sahi Pro. So if you have if you're trying to test a web application on an Android browser or on an iOS browser, that is possible, but testing native iOS apps and native Android apps is not possible in Sahi Pro right now. There's a question on can the number of retries be increased if required? Yes, you can increase the retries. This is all configurable in Sahi.properties file and in userdata.properties file. So there are two files in Sahi, userdata.properties and Sahi.properties. So the defaults of all values are stored in Sahi.properties, and whatever you need to overwrite is all available in userdata.properties. The way you do it is like this: you click on configure. This opens up this configure Sahi screen. Go to userdata.properties. These are all the properties that you want to specify. Now, if you want to know what are all the properties that are available, click on this part which says view Sahi.properties. These are all the properties that are available. Okay, so you can choose any of these properties. Let's say and you can add it here and change it to whatever you want. So if you change it like this, then userdata.properties overrides Sahi.properties. So whatever you put in userdata.properties will be the ones which will be picked by Sahi. Okay. It's possible to schedule the test runs. So the thing is, see, we kind of do not have a scheduler in Sahi itself, but we rather say that if you're using Windows, use the Windows scheduler. If you're using Linux, use a cron job. And if you're using Jenkins, there is a way to actually set what time you need to run it on in the Jenkins task itself. So you can use one of these. Can we record and playback non-browser application? No, so we can't do that right now. There's a question which says the reports could be customized. Yes, the reports can all be customized. There is a whole section on how reports are customized in the documentation. It's fairly straightforward. You should be able to actually get whatever kinds of reports you want. There are a lot of more questions. I think in the interest of time, we will actually answer many of these. Some of them are very specific to their usage. So what we will do is we'll try to answer as many of them. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with the link to this webinar and also the answers to the questions that we'll be answering. Okay. So if you need anything answered to us, you can actually either ask these questions here, or you could drop an email to support@sahi.co.in for any technical queries. For sales queries, you can actually email sales@sahi.co.in. And if you want to reach out to me, you can email me at narayan@sahi.co.in. Okay. So thanks a lot, everyone. Like as I said, like if you want to reach out to us, please do reach out on these emails. I'll be closing this presentation in a minute or two. Okay. So if you have any questions, just like put it in here, or else I'll. Okay, then thanks everyone for attending this webinar. We hope to see you soon in the next webinar. Like we'll be actually emailing out whatever we have done this time, and hope you have a great time automating using Sahi. Thanks a lot, and good night, and have a great day.